numbers, how many bears they watched, but just basically how they got into it and when they started and why they've stuck with it for the number of years that they have.
We can't get away.
Can't get away.
Because we love our bears.
Well, I love your beers, and Glenn mentioned, I said, what are you doing weekly beers? He says we don't sleep. So I'll turn it over to Glenn and Nancy, and thank you, by the way, for coming. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Well, first I'll tell you how we track our bears. We have 12, of course, you know, in the study, and Glenn and I track 6 of them. And this is the collar that we put on, and when we put the collar on, or when I make any adjustments, I'm the one that does it. He takes the pictures. When we do it, we don't tranquilize or drug them. We get them interested in a favorite food of theirs, and Glenn will get down on his hands and knees and keep them
I just
interested.
get down like this and I pet them and talk to them, hi sweet. Even though they have a name, I end up calling them sweetie. And it works, so I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put food in my hand and pet them and talk to them, and then Nance puts a collar on.
And then I put the collar on, or in the spring of the year, of course, you know, they lose their weight during hibernation. And then we have to make an adjustment. Sometimes the collar might be in the den, it might have come off when they come out of the den, and that means Glenn has to go out and look for a collar. And there are times that he comes back with mud up to his waist and pretty wet, but he brings the collar back, and we just wait for whichever bear it is that's lost his collar to come back to us, and I get the collar back on them. In the fall of the year, of course, they put their weight on, their fur is thicker, and I'll make the adjustments to a larger hole. Well, it doesn't just happen like putting on a dog collar. If you notice the little nuts we have here and the washer, and you're working through that thick fur a lot of times, I'd rather put a collar on a bear than have to make the adjustment. I'm always afraid they're going to dart away from me before I get it adjusted, because it takes time to take it off, find out where I have to put it, and get everything put back together. Dot is probably my easiest bear to put a collar on. She is now 12, right? She and Donna are 12, just turned 12 in January. We started with Dot. She was our first bear that we started with, and we started 14 years ago. 15 years, it'll be 15 this summer. We had a bear doing some strange things around our cabin, knocking over all of our pine trees, or biting them off, or climbing up so far and just snapping them up. So we've known Lynn for quite a while. He actually lives in Glenn's grandmother's house now. Glenn called and talked to him, and he said, well, it's probably a male marking its territory, but he said, why don't you come down and meet my bears? And that's when he first started going on his own with Whiteheart and Blackheart. Those were the first 2 bears that we were introduced to with Dr. Rogers. We had...
No, they were in the wild, right?
They were in the wild, yes. Those bears were in the wild. And we had in the woods training, that's what we call our training, because we started working with Lynn. He would go on a lecture tour or whatever, and we would go down and feed the bear. We'd turn the lights off. He'd call us, come on down, I'm tired, I've got to go home and go to bed. Come down and stay with my bears, feed them, do whatever you want, turn the light off, and leave when they leave. So that's how we got started. Well, we did that for several years, and then one morning I woke up and saw a bear at our deer feeder. And I went outside. I wasn't afraid because I've been working, of course, with Dr. Rogers. I went outside and in my bathrobe, and here comes one bear by me, and I turned around and here's another bear sitting with a collar on it. And I called Lynn. I kind of knew which bear it might be. It was our Dot. And she had been injured twice. She was a yearling. She had been injured twice at the center and hibernated. And when she came out in the spring, she never went back down to Dr. Rogers' research area, she came toward us. And he said, all right, now you're going to start doing your own research and turning in the data to him. Because he said, I really don't think Dot will ever come back to the center, being she had been injured. And she never has returned. She'd stayed.
Was she attacked by another bear?
Yes, actually by her grandmother. She had
Shadow?
gotten a leg.
Is it Shadow?
Shadow.
So like elephants, bears never forget.
Shadow, right, they don't. And so she's been our bear, and he said, that summer, she would come and go, and in July, she looked pretty thin. And she was 2.5 now. So he, of course, didn't think she would have cubs that year. And we had seen her with a male in May and June. But we took care of her. We kept feeding her and feeding her and feeding her. And went home in the fall after she hibernated. In January, we got a phone call. It was Lynn. He says, Nancy, you did it. Your grandparents have told us. So then, it was just a few days. I said, oh, when can we get up there? He says, whenever you can come, we'll go out to the den. And we've been with Dot's been with us. She's now 12, and she should have given birth this January, so we hope to get out pretty soon when the snow goes down, so we could get out to her den. But we tracked Dot. Was it about 3 years we had her on her own?